All right, everybody. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day so far. What we're going to be doing today is we are going to continue working on Lin Lin's clown assassin character. Vegeta, get, get down, get down. Sorry, Kitty's being bad, trying to break my blinds. Anyway, let's go ahead and let's hop on over here. So I was able to do at least a little bit before stream. I've been working on commission work, so I've been trying my best to fit in the OC art raffle characters here. What I'm thinking is I'll probably do one more wheel spin, and then I'm going to probably have to prioritize my commissions. And then we'll figure out what we're gonna do with the OC art raffle, whether we're gonna move it to like maybe a like Patreon reward or something like that. As like, the wheel spin will be like a tier. I promise it won't be anything expensive, maybe like, $1 or $5 or something like that. So it won't be like super like out of range, like crazy. So anyway, I got a little bit of like the lighting done. I liquefied the face a bit to have the proportions a little bit better. It was looking kind of funky before. Hey Annie, how's it going? five five billion double dollars for the Patreon. What's up, Nampa? I'm glad you think my art is worth that much. But yeah, this is how far I got. Um I like most of this is going to be in shadow, but I do want to put like a secondary like bounce lighting coming up from a different direction here. And I actually have the 3D model reference. So what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to save it so I can see. Turn all this off real quick. That way I can use that as my secondary light source reference. See, I've got like different like lighting here on it as well. So let me go ahead and let's make this 100%. I'll save it as a JPEG here. How's your drawing been going? Did you get used to your medicine yet, Nefa? Okay, so now I can turn this off and turn all this back on. And I can put the reference up here. There we go. Now I can see the secondary lighting that I was working on here. Gotcha. Yeah, like sometimes artwork takes like, well, not just sometimes. A lot of the times, like artwork will take a good amount out of me. So I get it. It can be quite exhausting. I think what I'm gonna do first actually is I'm gonna do some more of where like there needs to be some more shadow, and then we can add some more lighting to it. Because I am gonna have to adjust this a little bit because like the reference here, of course, is not wearing like any clothing, so I have to have the shadowing for that. Oh, come on. There. Nice. Welcome, Lin Lin. It is great. Let's turn this down to like 30. Doesn't need to be super crazy. Just need a little bit more definition with some of the shadows here. Because I only have the basic like form shading underneath. So we're just gonna add some of the details. Yeah, the reference is kind of nakey. Like, I use the Clip Studio Paint 3D assets to set up the dynamic shots and stuff like that because it's just easier. Um, I've got the tools, might as well use them. But it's not like super crazy, like in like something like maybe like Blender where you can make clothes and you can have them actually be like um like have physics like cloth or anything like that. So it's not like I can just like straight up make like clothing or anything. Like there's some stuff like kind of had like a little bit of a guide for like where the jacket would fall, but nothing super crazy. shadows here from hair squiggle. Again, I'm super glad that I found out that using the overlay layer is really good for adding and subtracting like value and pretty sick. The song gets stuck in my head all the time. Trying to imagine a little bit of how the form would like warp the where the shadow falls and stuff. It's not easy. Getting some more detail shadows here. Try to start using some of the reference a little bit here. Yeah, it is Havoc and I's 10-year marriage anniversary today. I'm so happy to be married to such an amazing, beautiful person for so long. Makes me super happy. Yes, please, the best forever and ever. Too. Thank you. My wonderful wife makes me super happy all the time. We're not going to do exactly the lighting on the reference, but we're just going to kind of refer to it every now and then. Especially since things would be different because, of course, the hood is covering a large portion of where the light would hit. So, probably put some more texturing for the hair a little bit here and there. Like I said, we don't have to do every single strand, but we can do at least some implications that there are little clumps of hair. Thank you, Three Frogs. Appreciate it. How's it going today? Made a little bit more progress last night on your commission. I'm just doing like a little bit like here and there, kind of like trying to preserve my shoulder in between, doing this and the commissions and stuff. But I was telling Chad I might move the OC art raffle to a Patreon reward. And I've been meaning to open a Patreon anyway. Anyway, so that'll help me balance out like my work. I wish I was just like an unstoppable machine without like any any injuries. That would make me happy, but life happens, so kind of just deal with it. Well, it's like Patreon, I've tried to do it before, but I could never really come up with like rewards that were like manageable. So, oh yeah, I know. I just like to let my clients know that I am still, still working. I don't want anybody to think that I'm just like fucking off somewhere. It's like that and trying to do like errands around the apartment and all the life stuff. Yeah, well, if I do a Patreon, it's not gonna be like anything crazy. Like, the tiers would probably be like, $1, and then maybe like $5 or $10 at the most. Just something like easily, so everybody like can easily participate, not have to worry about like insane like monthly costs or anything. We all have enough like subscriptions and like all that good stuff to pay for, so I understand that sometimes it's even hard to commit to like $1 or $2 a month, especially sometimes because you got to like keep track of like what's coming in and out of your bank accounts, like. And then on top of that, the what are the rewards or the creator that you're supporting has to be like justifiable, has to be worth it. So I do think Patreon's super cool though. There we go. We got a little bit of texturing going on here, and I can kind of blend some of it so it's not so harsh in some areas. Make it a little softer for the hair. All right, that's better for hair. We got some texture on there. Oops, I forgot to do the other side. Once I added like the lighting to this, I was like, ooh, this looks really nice. I'm pretty excited at how this one's gonna turn out. And I always love doing like giant, like ridiculous explosions. That's gonna be super fun to render. You can do all sorts of like cool stuff with like the lighting and the background. You can make it like really dynamic. Let's see. It's like I need some more actually have shadow across here. So we're actually going to lose a little bit of detail here, but that's okay. I'll have to put more shadow on the cheeks and stuff here. But that's okay. It's going to make it more like a little more menacing. I know. The soundtrack's so good. 100% a banger soundtrack. Dude, it's softer. Probably a little bit of some soft shadow on these bridges. Oh, liquefy. I was like, why? Better. And I think I might put soft shadowing these areas. Yeah. Hell yeah, it is. So good. I love Ado. Ado is so awesome. Where'd my reference go? That's for the other commission. The heck? It just disappeared? Okay, that's weird. Alright, let me load that again. Oh, it's saved over it. That's weird. You know what? It's fine. I'll just keep rolling with what I'm doing. I'll figure it out. Fancy has joined the party. Hell yeah. I'm excited. The ridge where I the bottom eye is. Gonna do that. And we'll give it a blend. Ooh, okay. Oh, what color are you dyeing your hair? It's always fun to do like crazy colors every now and then. I kind of miss my green hair. I had like Zorro green hair for a while. Not totally biased or anything as to why I like the green. Ooh, purple and black. Oh, so like your persona. Hell yeah. I like that. Let's get the upper lip here. Usually it's either the upper lip or the lower lip is mostly in shadow based on the lighting. So I'm gonna go with the upper lip right now. And I think that'll also like highlight the expression a little bit better. Yeah, I think that looks good. Also get the lower lip, but we're not gonna put as much. What I'll probably do, thinking is I'll fill it, and then what I'll do is I'll take my airbrush and get rid of some of this here. By the way, don't let anybody tell you to not use the airbrush. Uh, it is actually a very, very valuable and nice tool. I mean, don't use it like 100% as your like your shading, but really, really nice in a lot of like other if you control it correctly. Some people will stop at using the airbrush for their shading. You need some hard shadows here and there. So it's got to be a good balance between hard and soft shadows. A little bit of a extension of that upper lip there. Blend it out a little bit like that. Yeah, that's looking good. And let's give a little bit of some shadow here and here under the lip. Some of that. That's probably good for the face. Oh, that's okay. Hey, take your time. I totally get it. Like, chores and errands definitely take a hot minute, so I 100% get it. I think that's the hardest thing about like my days off from streaming is like a lot of it gets taken up, like, doing like dishes, doing laundry, going to the store so we have food to eat. Takes a lot of my time. And I'm just like, but I want to be drawing. Gotta have some shadow extended here for the hair. Still shadow. And if the shadows are a bit farther away from the source, they get blurred out a little bit more. So is a good rule of thumb there. This hand isn't exactly like 100% like on this area here, so it's like not directly next to it. Sure. The shadows do come off as a bit softer since the material of the it's a hoodie material. So we're also not going to have super like jagged shadows or edges. Gonna be a bit softer. Ooh, gotta stretch. Yeah. I did need to stretch. I worked out super late last night, so I'm like, ugh. I actually have some really tasty green tea, so I'm gonna drink some of that. I'm gonna say this side's darker. Roll with that. Let's get some folds here. Uh, yeah, the fingers blocking some light too. There we go. Things are starting to look a little bit more detailed here. Sure, a save. Let's get a bit more. Again, I think. But we're not going to do it all 100 there. Subtle. A little definition there. I think I like some of these covers too because I don't have the best hearing, so hearing like the actual lyrics a little more like clearly is actually kind of nice because I didn't know like I don't always know 100% like the lyrics to these like classic songs. And I like never took the time to like look them up either, so like I could have. Like a little like other side of the let's do that. Subtle, blend it. Let's see. So most of this probably just shadowed out. Let's do this where we have a little bit of a separation of some of the shadows and values because this sticks out a little bit more, so it'd be a little lighter. A little bit. Start to think that together. Yeah, that looks good. Will definitely be this whole area. My educated guessing here on the lighting. Oh God, yeah, that's terrible. That's the worst. You're like, I'll be fine with all this running water, and it's like, nope, I was dead wrong. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fill this whole thing and then I'll carve out maybe a little bit of light. So, and just a little bit of this, soften it too. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, that's always the worst. Yeah, I think it's even worse like when like some of it like splashes up and gets on like the bottom of your shirt. So it's like you're also like now you're cold and wet and it's just like, why? Why for you do this to me? I gotta add the flowers and stuff here at some point. And it kind of makes it seem like these are some folds here. Just to show it's not completely flat. That might be a little excessive. Might need to dial it back just a bit. That's probably, yeah, it looks a little bit better. Ooh, I'm glad you found it. That's important. Yeah. So, didn't fill. Oh, there we go. Didn't have the freaking color selected. 100% my bad. make slightly, just to kind of make sure I'm consistent here, that it's like representing this side as being a little darker, a little more turned away from like the explosion. But it's coming along. And I got to add a little bit of some lighting on this other side here. And then I think we can move on to doing the explosion itself. Explosion! I want another season of Konosuba. So good. Adventures of Kazu Trash. Say this side is a lot. But I'm going to use this to that. It's not like super easy. Should do it some well. Hey, what's up, Feisty? Thanks. I'm so glad to see you. Havoc let me know that you weren't doing so well there, so I'm so happy that you're here. I was concerned about you. Well, still am, but glad you're here. You're like one of the nicest people ever, so of course. Got to think about the good people. Darken this whole arm. Then I'll do some of the absolutely darker. the ocular occlusion. Trying to keep it a little more rounded, of course, since it's the hood material, if I can. Have like the hand itself cast a little bit. Good. There we go. It's looking pretty good. Save before I forget. I gotta get the fill in there so the base is completely filled in. Sometimes I don't always close all my lines, so when I go to fill the base, it doesn't always fill in. And trying to work as quickly as I can because Havoc is also going to stream some Final Fantasy later. And I would like to, of course, hang out during that and support my beautiful wife. Also, I love Final Fantasy VII, so all right, gotta get some on the side here. Probably not quite as much. There's more light over here. Normally, I would fill like the whole layer with the dark and then carve it out, but I've already done that with some of these parts here, so I definitely imagine that this is one I will probably have to finish up off stream, but you guys can at least see most of the process that's important. This part of it would be pretty dark. The Phoenix. Completely dark. Inside. Sorry I'm not yapping as much. I'm trying to lock in here so I can get as far as I can. Do I'll do the dark display on this part of the hand. Oh yeah. I always try to do my best with the OC art raffles, like the amount of time that I have to work on them. It's important to make you guys as characters look cool, so pretty dark. It's on the inside there. Oh, no. Why? Why did you do that? Go back. Ooh, scared me. That's save before I forget. Thanks. Oh yeah, forgot I was doing stuff up here. I wish I could put 100% effort into them, but then I wouldn't get anything else done. Because I could like sit here and render like forever till every little thing is like, lit or shadowed properly. But at a certain point you gotta go, okay, this is done. Otherwise you will never get the rest of your projects done. I've got so many projects to work on. Especially since I need to pick whether I'm gonna commit my time to the Otomi game or if I'm gonna commit my time to the webtoon. I gotta pick one because I can't do both, unfortunately. Kind of thinking the Otomi game's a little more feasible. I think so too. The Otomi game's also like more financially viable. We can actually get some income from it. So like the game itself will be like free to play like the main story, but we'll have like alternate stories or like outfits or things like that that we can offer. Also, it'll be cool to say, hey, I worked on a game. Why? Yeah, we'll get it sorted out. We'll figure it out. You guys get to experience Havoc's amazing writing. I'll do my best to make it pretty. And normally I would do like all the shading that would be behind here, but it's going to be covered, so I'm not going to worry about it as much. I don't foresee myself moving the wanted poster, so we're just going to leave it as it is. Add to the selection. Thank you, Christ. Sometimes the selection one tool can be finicky. True. You are correct. It's because Havoc is the best. And anybody who disagrees has to enter a death ladder match with me, a ladder death match. Get like suplexed onto like broken glass and thumbtacks. All right, that's probably good for the shadows. That, and let's add some secondary light, and then we'll start to, we'll at least get his base colors. And then we will probably have to color from there. Figure out where I want the secondary light to actually be. Oh yeah, it'll be a tag team match. We'll have Pensy in too. Actually, I don't really know if it needs a secondary light. I think it might be alright like that. I think it looks kind of more like dramatic this way. And then I could always add some other lighting at the end. I think this is actually fine. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get his base colors down. That's already nice and desaturated, so we can go ahead and convert that. And then I can grab some of these other colors for the rest of it. Those are down here are pink. And the skin is already white, so I don't have to worry about that. Let's do. I need the eye whites a little bit, like in this grayish pink. But they're always going to have a little bit of like pink in them from the surrounding tissue. And contrary to popular beliefs, eye whites aren't 100% white. So always be aware of that. You want them to be a little gray and a little bit like kind of peach or pinky kind of color. Unless of course your character has like the blacked out scleras, then it's different. Then it would be dark, and then whatever your freaking like blood tone would be. Right, and then he has yellow eyes. So I'm actually gonna grab this from up here. Yeah, I think he's gonna look pretty cool when we're done. I can't say that I've ever actually drawn a clown character before, so this is like a new thing for me. Getting his base stuff. Do the hair. I'm actually going to desaturate it just a little bit because we're going to do a lot of like effects and whatnot. So I always try to desaturate it somewhat. Because like once we add like stuff like color dodge and all that crazy stuff on top, it'll brighten it back. It's always good to have the base colors a little bit more desaturated, in my opinion. That way you don't lose like your values and any of the effects that you add aren't like super amplified to the point where they're like unmanageable. They can get pretty wacky if you don't if you're not conscious of that. It is very easy to let your values get away from you. Curly's manually a little bit easier to do. I'm gonna make his eyebrows the same color for the sake of consistency here. I think it'll help it stand out a little bit more. Have a little more contrast between the skin and the makeup and stuff. Gonna protest the hero here. Do better, shuffle. There we go. There we go. We got the hair. See. Grab some colors here. Saturate that a little bit on the yellow. And of course, when we change this shading and the lighting of the colors, it won't have like this gray funk to it. I just do it in black and white first to get my values like somewhat, where I want them to be. I want to make sure the color is everywhere it's supposed to be. Sometimes when you do like the wand selection, uh it'll get off, or it won't like quite cover exactly what you're trying to cover. So sometimes you got to go in and do it manually. Do little manual spots here and there. So let's doing the flats again is like the definitely a more tedious part of the process for sure. Right, so let's do bulk of it here, and that one's already pretty detached. Let's lighten it up a little bit. Because again, I got to worry about my values here. Take a shot every time I say values. You will be wasted. I'd have to say this is one of my favorite sci-fi anime series. It's called Psycho Pass. You guys haven't seen it, it is excellent. Jump over. Oh well, get in a sec. Um, I don't think it fell off, but it's just different because she's like tracked him down after the first season, and like it's not quite as like, I guess, intense as the first season. Like especially since the first season is the one that like reveals the the whole twist to the series. So, it is kind of difficult to top that, like once you've or to continue the series after like the main reveal has been done. So we got a couple different places we can use this color. I don't know. That song is also just like a banger, so that's why it always reminds me. I know this is a little lighter, but I think I'm gonna use the same color. I like to kind of keep the palettes like relatively simple. I mean, this is already very simple, but I don't know. The backpack's not really like the focal point of this, so not too concerned as far as that goes. All right, let's go back to the jacket because I didn't finish that. I think the pants are the same color. Yeah, the pants are the same color too. Especially if like you're gonna draw like a character that's like something you're gonna draw like consistently, you definitely like the simpler the better. And oftentimes, and I'm super guilty of this, when people do character design, they will overcomplicate their character. When sometimes the best thing to do is actually subtract a lot of that detail and then focus on like the specific thing that's like, that makes them like unique. I mean, it's the same. Oh no, wait, the handle's a different handle's this color. A little bit more. Put it behind the. And I kind of assume that this color here is going to be more of a like gold. So I'm also going to do some desaturation on that. Gold is also one of those metals that when you go to do say like rendering or anything like adding light and shadow to it, gold does not reflect the color of the environment or what's going on. So it's always good to remember that gold has a much more like, the color range is going to be within all these like, desaturated browns, yellows, whites, that kind of thing. Yeah, Psychopaths is like one of those like really like dystopian like society sci-fi kind of things. But it's really good. Like I like it a lot. I think it's excellent. Oh yeah, so like when you're coloring things, you have to kind of think about the material that they're also those colors are applied to. Like I might even I think I'm gonna take the base white and I am actually gonna shift it just a little bit so we can get kind of like the color underneath a little bit to show through a little bit. I was kind of guessing that this character kind of looks like they're, especially with the texture of their hair, that they're a bit like Linlin. Is this character supposed to be like an African American, or do they just have textured hair because they're a clown? The facial structure and the hair kind of makes it seem like they're more like African American, or at least of African descent. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add a little bit of like kind of like I'm gonna add at least a little bit of a peachy to the white, just for skin in general, because some of it's gonna show through the makeup, and we can always like lighten it back up with like the lighting sources and stuff. So yes, a little, just a bit. Ooh, it's got like a yellow glove and a pink glove too, so I gotta do that, and I gotta do these to the armbands as well. A little bit in saturation. That is gonna be say this one. Middle Eastern. Okay. Okay. I got you. So still like the skin would still be like more bronzed or darker. Or at least like, more of like an olive kind of like tint to it. More melanin, basically. Don't worry, Aniki knows how to draw different types of people. Unlike some artists, I do not shy away from that. Diversity is important. If you're worried about like drawing characters that aren't like your race or what you're normally used to drawing, like one, look up advice from creators who are of that race, and two, ask for feedback. Like there's nothing wrong with asking for feedback when you're trying to, if you're a little like concerned about how things might turn out. It's better to ask than to just do and then hope for the best, you know? That's how people get canceled. Is they just do it and then somebody's like, that's racist, and then they flounder. So like, all right, well, what can I do to improve it? What can I change? Like, what in particular makes it come off as like racist? Yeah, I would ask the furry for advice for sure. If I was trying, if I had a furry commission, right, or something like that, or if I was doing like a furry for like the OC art raffle, and I wasn't like sure like how they wanted their furry to be drawn, because like I've only drawn one semi furry thing I think my whole life, so getting advice about that would be peak. Yeah, it's just important, like diversity is a thing for a reason. So all different types of people exist in this world, and we should all, recognize them and be respectful of them. All right, so we got most of the base colors here. So let me get some of the things here. We got some stuff on the glove I gotta add. Let's do that first. Oh yeah. I mean, it's I don't know. I don't think it's hard to be a good person and just like consider other people. Like I get really weirded out by people like I personally don't understand racism at all. Oh my god, yeah. I hear you on that one. That's something I'm not particularly good at either. Oops. I just kind of realized that I had some things flip-flopped here. Oh well. I think you'll forgive me, right, Linlin, if things are on the wrong place. I'm like way too far into it to change it. Speaking of which, John John's character, I totally forgot her glowy like tattoo that she has. Completely forgot. Got a lighter outside. Let's do that. Oh, that's taking up a lot of space. Let me make that smaller. Sometimes I make things way too large. Too large. Same color. I'm gonna add an outline to this too. Oops, that's on the same layer. Okay. Alpha lock it so we can do the swirl. The palms of his gloves are actually black. Okay, I can fix that. That's not a big deal. That. Let's see these of his gloves. So yeah, so we'll put a layer up here, and let's go. Yeah, Pensy, do not burn your hair or your eyes. It's like some more color. Yeah, I'll be wrapping up pretty soon here because I want to have Havoc have plenty of time before first stream. Show just a little bit. There we go. Got that fixed. So I just got to do these flowers here. I think that's the last of the details. Saturate a little bit. This one. This anime was excellent too. It's so stupid. It's called Overly Cautious Hero. Spends like all this time like power leveling and buying everything he possibly can before he even begins. It's so funny. There we go. Alright, we got all our base colors. And then what I'll have to do is I'll do like I'll probably end up doing most of this, the rest of this off stream. If not finish it up. So let me go ahead and put you guys in the lobby so we can do a wrap up here. God, if I can get my mouse to go to the right screen. There we go. All right, I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today while we worked on Lin's awesome, super cool clown assassin character. I had a great time hanging out with you guys. Really appreciate it. If you like the kind of content I do, please follow me to see when I go live. Consider subscribing. That would help me out tremendously to continue to do what I do. If you have Amazon Prime, there should be a button for that for free. Um, Also, I do have a VGen under, I think it's Art Aniki underscore VT, but I do have a link under my profile and on my socials. Tomorrow will be the Saturday art share, but it is going to be a little bit later. I will change it on my schedule. We have Havoc and I have some plans, so it's going to be a little bit later than normal, but it's still going down. So I will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you have a wonderful weekend otherwise.